The hidden thrill of watching conflict. Why do we secretly lean forward when others clash? When voices rise, fists fly, or reputations crumble, a strange fascination takes hold. An almost guilty pleasure that whispers to the deepest parts of our minds. We tell ourselves it's curiosity or a desire to understand, but beneath the surface, something far older, far more primal, is at work. Across time and place, humans have been drawn to conflict, compelled to witness struggle, to feel the tension and release of confrontation. In ancient Rome, the Colosseum roared with anticipation as gladiators faced death in the arena. Medieval knights dueled not just for honor, but for the spectacle it created, and public executions once drew entire cities into a communal, grim fascination. Conflict was never merely violence. It was performance, a mirror held up to human nature itself. And yet, we do not need history books to see this impulse in action. A family argument spills across dinner tables. A heated political debate ignites outrage online. A boxing match goes viral in seconds. And we are drawn in. Our minds react in ways we scarcely admit, a mix of empathy and schadenfreude, sympathy and pleasure at another's struggle. We feel their pain, yet at the same time, a part of us thrills at the chaos, at the unpredictability, at the raw display of human vulnerability. Philosophers have long pondered this duality. Nietzsche saw conflict as a reflection of our own internal struggles, the drive to assert, to dominate, to survive. Hobbes argued that humans are at their core creatures of competition, driven by a restless tension that civilization can never fully suppress. And so, as we observe others fight, literally, verbally, or symbolically, we see a fragment of ourselves, our aggression, our fear, our desire to prevail. This urge is subtle, often unacknowledged, yet it shapes what we watch, what we click, what we share. It is a quiet, persistent hunger for drama, tension, and resolution. And while society layers rules, etiquette, and morality over our instincts, the fascination endures, lurking beneath the veneer of civility. In this documentary, we will trace that fascination from the grand arenas of the past to the digital spectacles of today. We will explore why we cannot look away, why this secret thrill persists, and how it has been harnessed, exploited, and amplified, often in ways we never consciously recognize. The question is simple, yet unnervingly profound. Why do some people secretly love watching others fight? And more importantly, what does it reveal about us, about the human condition itself? The historical dance of violence and spectacle. Long before screens and social media, humans gathered to watch conflict unfold, drawn to the spectacle with a mixture of fear, excitement, and curiosity. In the arenas of ancient Rome, tens of thousands of citizens would cheer as gladiators faced life and death. These were not merely fights. They were carefully orchestrated performances, a theater of human struggle and survival. Each clash of sword against shield, each cry of pain or triumph was a story laid bare for the crowd. And the crowd responded with something primal, something undeniable. The fascination with conflict was not confined to Rome. Across medieval Europe, knights jousted in grand tournaments, their victories celebrated with fanfare, and their defeats immortalized in song and legend. These contests were staged, highly ritualized, yet their effect on the audience was visceral. The thrill came not only from skill or bravery, but from the drama of human fragility, the tension of life hanging by a thread, of honor and reputation poised on the edge of a blade. Even public executions, grim and merciless as they were, drew spectators in numbers that rivaled today's biggest sporting events. Here, too, the collective gaze was drawn to suffering, to confrontation, to the raw spectacle of mortality and human weakness. Why were these displays so compelling? One answer lies in the social and political functions they served. Rulers and elites understood the power of spectacle. By channeling the population's aggression and attention into a controlled arena, they maintained social order while satisfying instinctual desires for drama and conflict. The crowd's emotional investment became a tool of control. Fear and awe intertwined with excitement and anticipation. In essence, humans were being entertained, educated, and manipulated all at once. Philosophical reflections of the time hint at a deeper understanding of this phenomenon. Aristotle wrote of catharsis, the purging of emotion through the vicarious experience of tragedy and conflict. By witnessing struggle, humans could confront fear, anger, and desire within a safe communal space. Conflict was both a moral lesson and a source of pleasure, a paradox that has persisted through centuries. Even in cultures far removed from Europe, similar patterns emerge. Ritualized combat, staged contests, and public displays of strength and skill have been universal. Across time and geography, humans have always been drawn to the tension of confrontation, the drama of risk, and the spectacle of dominance and defeat. These patterns reveal a truth. The fascination with watching others fight is neither modern nor accidental. It is deeply embedded in the human psyche. Yet, the story of conflict as entertainment is also a story of manipulation. Societies have long discovered that by curating, dramatizing, and amplifying struggle, they could shape perception, influence behavior, and reinforce hierarchies. The same instincts that draw us to the spectacle are those that can be exploited, first by emperors and kings, and now by media and digital platforms. By tracing this history, we begin to see that the thrill of watching others fight is not mere curiosity or simple voyeurism. It is a complex dance of biology, psychology, and society, a dance that has shaped civilizations, reinforced power structures, and reflected the paradoxes of human nature. Understanding this historical context is essential before we explore the deeper psychological mechanisms that continue to drive this fascination today. The psychology behind the thrill. What is it about watching others fight that sparks such a visceral reaction within us? Why does a viral argument, a heated debate, or a boxing match grip our attention, tug at our emotions, and sometimes even make our hearts race? The answer lies deep within the human mind, in mechanisms both biological and psychological, ancient and enduring. At the foundation of this fascination are mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire not only when we act, but when we observe others acting. When someone punches, cries out, or triumphs, our brains simulate the experience. We feel, in a fraction of a second, a shadow of their struggle. It is empathy in motion, a neurological bridge between self and other. Yet this same mechanism, when paired with our primal instincts, produces a strange duality. While we can feel the pain of others, we also derive pleasure from their misfortune. This is Schadenfreude, the secret satisfaction in witnessing defeat, failure, or humiliation. Schadenfreude is not an anomaly. It is a feature of the human psyche. Evolutionarily, it may have served as a social compass, allowing individuals to gauge threats, measure rivals, and learn from the mistakes of others without incurring personal risk. By observing conflict, humans could rehearse responses to danger, strengthen social cohesion within their groups, and reinforce hierarchies. The thrill of watching others struggle is, in this sense, a survival tool, a rehearsal for life in a world where stakes were often high and errors could be fatal. Tribal instincts further explain our attraction to conflict. Humans are inherently social creatures, attuned to group dynamics. Conflicts involving members of our tribe or social circle trigger heightened attention, eliciting both protective empathy and competitive anxiety. Conflicts among outsiders or rival groups ignite a different response. Excitement, curiosity, and even pleasure at the shifting balance of power. Our fascination with struggle is therefore not just personal, it is deeply social, a reflection of our position within networks of relationships and allegiances. Yet there is more than biology and social instinct at play. Philosophers and psychologists have long noted that observing conflict allows us to confront our own inner tensions indirectly. Nietzsche suggested that humans are drawn to displays of power and struggle because they mirror our own desires and frustrations. The drive to assert, to dominate, to survive. Jungian psychology echoes this. The conflicts we witness externally are often symbolic reflections of the conflicts we harbor internally. Each argument we watch, each fight we follow becomes a canvas for our fears, ambitions, and unspoken desires. Experiments in behavioral psychology support this. People report increased engagement when exposed to moral dilemmas, heated debates, or competitive displays, even when it evokes guilt or discomfort. Watching others struggle activates the brain's reward centers, releasing dopamine and heightening arousal. Conflict captivates because it is both threatening and fascinating. It is unpredictable, yet instructive. It satisfies curiosity and instinct simultaneously. This paradox, empathy entwined with pleasure, fear mixed with excitement, explains why watching conflict feels compelling. It is not merely entertainment. It is a psychological mirror, a biological trigger, and a social compass all at once. From viral online fights to heated political debates, the patterns are the same. Our brains are hardwired to notice tension, to anticipate resolution, and to derive complex emotional responses from the struggle of others. Understanding this internal machinery is crucial before we examine how modern media exploits it, amplifying our fascination for conflict in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. The thrill of watching others fight is not just a quirk of personality or culture. It is a deep, persistent feature of what it means to be human. And once we recognize it, we can begin to see the subtle ways it shapes behavior, society, and even our sense of morality. Modern media, conflict, and manipulation conflict has always captivated us, but never before in human history has it been packaged, amplified, and delivered with the precision we see today. Modern media, from television to social platforms, has turned the primal fascination with struggle into a commodity, carefully curated to capture attention, provoke emotion, and manipulate behavior. Whereas ancient rulers staged gladiator fights or public executions to control populations, today's algorithms exploit the same instincts, often without us even realizing it. The mechanism is subtle, yet powerful. Social media thrives on engagement, and nothing drives engagement like conflict, outrage, argument, scandal. These are the triggers that make us pause, scroll, click, and share. When someone posts a heated comment, a viral fight, or a dramatic confrontation, our brains respond the same way they did centuries ago in the Colosseum. Mirror neurons fire, empathy intertwines with schadenfreude, and a cocktail of curiosity, excitement, and moral judgment keeps us glued. Algorithms notice this, they reward it, and in doing so, they condition us to seek more. Reality television offers another lens, shows that pit contestants against one another in competitions or interpersonal drama exploit the same ancient fascination. Audiences watch, often with guilty enjoyment, as friendships fracture, rivalries ignite, and tempers flare. The thrill lies not just in the spectacle of struggle, but in the vicarious confrontation with values, desires, and ambitions, both theirs and ours. Producers understand this instinctively. They know that drama sells because it taps into biological and psychological pathways that have existed for millennia. Political media amplifies this effect to an even more consequential degree. Debates, speeches, and media coverage often emphasize conflict over consensus, outrage over calm deliberation. The polarization we witness in modern societies is fueled not only by ideological differences, but by the very human fascination with struggle and tension. Campaigns, pundits, and social platforms exploit our attraction to conflict, consciously or unconsciously, to generate engagement, influence perception, and shape behavior. History's lessons are repeated in a digital arena. Conflict captivates, distraction distracts, and spectacle manipulates. The consequences extend beyond entertainment. Studies show that repeated exposure to conflict-oriented content increases emotional arousal, strengthens biases, and reduces empathy. We begin to expect drama, to see opponents rather than fellow humans, to prioritize entertainment over understanding. In this way, our primal fascination is not just observed, it is exploited, turning instinct into a mechanism for manipulation. Yet the allure is undeniable. Watching others fight provides a sense of control, a rehearsal of social dynamics, and a mirror of personal desires and fears. It is compelling because it touches something deep and universal, connecting ancient instincts to contemporary experiences. Viral videos, political debates, social media arguments, they all resonate because they echo the same patterns that captivated audiences in arenas, tournaments, and marketplaces centuries ago. By examining modern media, we see that the urge to watch conflict is not a personal failing or a quirk of character. It is a biological, psychological, and social reality that can be harnessed for entertainment, for influence, and sometimes for manipulation. Understanding this interplay is crucial if we are to navigate the digital age consciously, to recognize when fascination becomes exploitation, and to reclaim awareness in a world engineered to keep our attention pinned to the drama of others. Conflict, it seems, has never been more accessible or more carefully weaponized. And as we move forward, the question becomes not whether we are drawn to it, but how we respond when our deepest instincts are constantly engaged, amplified, and monetized in ways we barely perceive. The social and moral consequences. The fascination with watching others fight does not exist in a vacuum. It ripples outward, shaping the way we relate to one another, how we interpret the world, and even how societies function. When conflict becomes entertainment, when struggle becomes spectacle, it has consequences that extend far beyond personal curiosity, and the effects are often subtle, cumulative, and profound. One of the most immediate impacts is the erosion of empathy. Repeated exposure to the suffering, humiliation, or defeat of others can desensitize us. What once evoked genuine concern may become mere amusement or passive observation. A viral argument, a public scandal, or a televised fight can be experienced repeatedly, without consequence, and with the same flicker of excitement. Over time, our emotional responses dull. We begin to treat real human pain as a source of entertainment, a background rhythm to the narratives we consume. Conflict as entertainment also reinforces division. Humans naturally categorize the world into us and them, allies and rivals, friends and enemies. Watching fights between groups, ideologies, or individuals often amplifies this tribal mindset. We align ourselves with one side, cheer for their victories, and revel in the misfortune of the other. In doing so, we solidify social boundaries and deepen polarization, not only online, but in real-world interactions. This effect is visible in politics, communities, and even workplaces, where the subtle thrill of seeing one side falter can harden attitudes and erode compromise. The social consequences extend to behavior. Studies in behavioral psychology suggest that consuming conflict-oriented media increases aggression, irritability, and competitive tension. When we are constantly exposed to disputes framed as entertainment, the boundaries between observation and participation blur. Arguments we witness may inform how we act, how we assert ourselves, or how we respond to disagreement. In effect, the fascination with watching others fight can shape not only what we see, but who we become. Yet, there is a paradox. While the consumption of conflict carries risk, it also serves functions. Observing struggle allows for learning, rehearsal, and moral reflection. We study strategy, anticipate reactions, and confront questions about right and wrong, justice and unfairness, dominance and vulnerability. The issue is not the existence of fascination itself, but its amplification and exploitation. When conflict is deliberately framed, sensationalized, and repeated, the natural instinct that once served adaptive purposes becomes a force with real consequences for social cohesion, morality, and emotional intelligence. This dynamic raises profound ethical questions. Should we be concerned about the ways media, politics, and technology exploit our fascination with conflict? How much of our outrage, engagement, and attention is truly our own, and how much is guided by forces that understand our psychological wiring? And on a personal level, what does it mean to derive pleasure from the struggles of others, even if those struggles are mediated through screens and narratives? Understanding these social and moral consequences is crucial. It reveals that our fascination with conflict is not merely a personal quirk or harmless curiosity. It is a force that shapes societies, informs behavior, and challenges our sense of morality. And the more we recognize it, the more power we have to reflect, respond consciously, and reclaim agency over the instincts that have defined human attention for millennia. The philosophical mirror. Conflict as reflection. Watching others fight is never just about the fight itself. It is a mirror, a reflective surface that shows us fragments of our own desires, fears, and contradictions. Every clash, argument, or struggle we observe externally resonates internally, revealing not only what others are willing to risk, but what we are willing to confront within ourselves. Philosophers have long suggested that humans are drawn to conflict because it illuminates the self. Nietzsche described life as a battlefield of wills, where strength, ambition, and struggle define the contours of existence. When we witness conflict, we are reminded of our own internal battles, our desires for control, recognition, and dominance. The arena of another's struggle becomes a symbolic stage where we confront our own impulses, ambitions, and vulnerabilities without facing the immediate danger ourselves. Jungian psychology offers another layer of understanding. The fights we watch often act as projections of the unconscious. The rival, the opponent, the provocateur. These are not only characters in a story, but symbolic reflections of parts of ourselves we rarely acknowledge. Anger, envy, fear, or aggression, when witnessed externally, are experienced safely, giving us a chance to process them indirectly. Conflict becomes a dialogue with the self, framed in the language of tension, risk, and human drama. There is also a moral dimension to this mirror. By observing disputes, injustices, and confrontations, we engage with questions of ethics, fairness, and justice. Who is right? Who is wrong? Who suffers? And who prevails? Watching others fight forces us into a moral stance, a judgment, a reflection on values that may otherwise remain abstract. Conflict is not just spectacle. It is an intellectual and emotional exercise, testing our empathy, reasoning, and ethical intuitions. This mirror effect is why fascination with conflict can feel simultaneously thrilling and uncomfortable. It is compelling because it is intimately personal. Yet the thrill derives from the external, the other, the stranger, or the adversary. We are drawn to what reflects us, even when it is violent, raw, or morally ambiguous. The mirror shows not only who we are, but who we might become if we embrace, deny, or fail to understand the forces within ourselves. Recognizing this reflective power of conflict shifts our perception. Watching others fight is no longer mere voyeurism. It becomes a lens into human nature and, more importantly, into ourselves. Conflict, in this sense, is a teacher, a philosopher, and a psychological instrument. It forces introspection, questions norms, and challenges the neat boundaries we place between self and other, observer and participant, morality and instinct. As we move toward understanding the consequences and choices this fascination presents, it becomes clear that the human desire to watch others struggle is as much about seeing ourselves as it is about seeing them. The mirror of conflict is always present, subtle, and profound, reflecting truths we rarely admit, yet cannot easily ignore. Conclusion: the hidden desire and the choice. We return, finally, to the question that has guided our journey. Why do some people secretly love watching others fight? The answer is not simple, nor comforting. It lies at the intersection of biology, psychology, history, and society, a complex web that connects ancient arenas to modern screens, primal instincts to sophisticated manipulation, and individual curiosity to collective consequence. Our fascination with conflict is not a flaw. It is human. From the roar of the Colosseum to the frenzy of viral videos, from medieval duels to political debates, humans have always been captivated by struggle. Evolution wired us to notice tension, anticipate outcomes, and feel vicariously the triumphs and failures of others. Mirror neurons, dopamine responses, schadenfreude, tribal instincts, they all converge to create an undeniable pull toward confrontation. Watching conflict allows us to process danger, rehearse social dynamics, and confront moral dilemmas, all from the relative safety of observation. Yet this instinct, ancient and universal, is not without consequences. In modern society, the fascination with struggle has been amplified and monetized. Algorithms reward outrage, sensationalism heightens engagement, and conflict becomes a tool of influence and control. Tribalism intensifies, empathy diminishes, and morality becomes performative. Our attention is no longer purely instinctual. It is shaped, curated, and manipulated by forces that understand our psychological wiring better than we do ourselves. And here lies the paradox. Watching others fight is both enlightening and dangerous, reflective and exploitative. It connects us to the core of human nature, yet it can ensnare us, making passive spectators of our own instincts. The thrill, the fascination, the secret pleasure. It is a mirror, yes, but also a lens that distorts, amplifies, and sometimes deceives. Recognizing this is the first step toward agency. Agency, in this sense, is the ultimate choice. Understanding why we are drawn to conflict does not demand that we abandon it entirely. It calls for awareness. It calls for reflection on what captivates us, why it captivates us, and how it shapes our perceptions, judgments, and actions. The difference between being consumed by spectacle and being informed by it lies in consciousness, in the ability to recognize instinct, observe it, and decide how it influences our attention and behavior. This awareness opens a path toward responsibility. If we understand that the thrill of watching others struggle is wired into us, we can choose how to engage with it. We can decide when to step back, when to empathize, when to question, and when to learn. Conflict in this light becomes a teacher rather than a trap. It becomes a tool for introspection, moral reasoning, and social awareness. As we close this exploration, we are left with a lingering reflection. The fascination with conflict is inseparable from the human condition. It is ancient, universal, and deeply embedded in our minds and societies. But it is not inevitable in its consequences. By observing with consciousness, by questioning with curiosity, by reflecting with courage, we reclaim the power to navigate this fascination without being dominated by it. The secret thrill of watching others fight is not a curse. It is a mirror, a challenge, and an invitation. It asks us to look closer, not just at the struggle before our eyes, but at the struggle within ourselves. To recognize the pull of instinct, the weight of history, the shaping hand of society, and the power of choice. And in that recognition, we find not only understanding, but the freedom to engage with the world and ourselves more deliberately, more wisely, and more humanely.